shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications options. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatterspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe.
Good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is the three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend with a good old-fashioned 3 o'clock kick-off tomorrow away to Brighton, which we'll look ahead to later on. But it's good evening to George, Steve, to Mitch, and to you at home. Hope everybody is fit and well. Completely unplanned show as usual. We don't know what will be coming other than Tweet of the Week, of course. So if you're easily offended, I will give you a fair warning. But yes, welcome along. Just want to start with an email, as I often do these days. Don't forget, if you have got something you want to get off your chest or ask us to talk about on the show, you can email us at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. And as these shows are never planned, I can always catch the lads out unaware, especially if they don't watch the Dutch League. And this is an email that we've had from Danny Gretsch. He says, "G'day, Steve. I enjoy all the shows you cover on NUFC Matters." He says, "The reason for my email is to ask the lads if Jordi Boss, an Australian left-back, attacking left-back, who currently plays in the Dutch top flight, would make a good option for the next transfer window." He says, "I believe a couple of Premier League clubs are looking at him. Do you think he'd make a good second at left-back? Can you please discuss? Thanks again for great shows. Cheers, Danny Campbell, Queensland, Australia." I've got to be honest, when I saw the name that he chucked in, Danny, Jordi Boss, I thought, am I getting set up here? It sounds a bit like Geordie Boys, the old Gaza classic song. But has anybody heard of him? Well, I've Googled him. And to be honest, he doesn't look too bad a turn, actually. Jordan Boss is his name. He is an attacking left back, and he does like get forward and create a few goals. Lads, anybody come across Jordi Boss without looking at it on their phones or googling it? Because I'd never come across him. So anybody?
Not me, Steve.
Was a new name to me.
Give him a look then, lads, because he's well worth a watch. So there you are, Danny. I did Danny Campbell from Queensland, Australia. We'll reach people on the other side of the world. We have had a look. Well, I've definitely had a look. I like him. We'll let the lads have a look at it, and we'll maybe discuss that next week. But
I'll pick it up in the Chronicle on Tuesday or Wednesday, because it's bound to be in there.
Yeah, it'll be picked up now. They'll be typing at their desk now.
Yeah, there certainly will be. And thanks to everybody for the feedback on the cover of the fanzine and for the content of the fanzine. I know it's dropped on most people's mats now. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, who with the lovely feedback. Everybody loves it. Simon loves your shirt. Banger of a Mexico shirt, Mitch, says Simon in San Diego. Is that what it is? Mexico? Yes. I can see it is, yeah. Mexico, yeah, quality. And Ian reckons we should sign that Australian left-back just for the name alone. which is a good idea. Okay, Tom Dixon, thanks for this. I've not caught up with this, to be honest. The last bit of NUFC stuff I looked at today was Eddie's press conference at 9:30 this morning, which we'll come to. Nick Pope has taken up the option of an additional year on his Newcastle contract. The goalkeeper will not be out of contract at the end of the season, and his deal over 18 months to run. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see Nick Pope stay, George. To be perfectly honest, I do like to see continuity in the goalkeeping position, especially when you've got somebody who's as good a shot stopper as Nick Pope is. George, are you happy to see him stay for a little bit longer?
Well, yes, and it's not just continuity in the goalkeeping jersey; it's continuity in the back four, isn't it? He's a back five, if you like. So if he's comfortable and he's happy to be there, I mean, we've had one issue with Nick Pope for a few years now about his play on the ground, but in terms of being a shot stopper and being a general goalkeeper. You just got to look at the statistics. How many clean sheets already this year? And in terms of clean sheets in the Premiership, I think he's the best. So you can't argue with stats like that and just be happy that he's happy at Newcastle United. I mean, I find it interesting that now you've mentioned sort of goalkeepers and contracts. We see all the shenanigans about people trying to get big moves to other clubs. I'm not going to mention any names. Well, Jordan Pickford's not my best friend, never has been. But imagine he signed another contract, which means he's got another 4 years at the new Everton ground, and never looked in another direction. When if there was any goalkeeper that could have done, he could have done. So having given him all sorts of brickbats for various things, it's nice to say thank you for your loyalty, and I'm sure the Everton fans are delighted. They should be.
To be honest, I've not seen this Nick Pope news, so I am going in a little bit blind here. I'm not sure whether it's been confirmed by the club or anything, but Tom seems fairly confident that it is true.
It's right. It's right.
Yeah. If it is true, then it is good news. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and we can probably widen it a little bit, Mitch, because Eddie was asked in his press conference about those players who are coming out of contract, and nothing has been agreed as yet. He said this morning, but Eddie's always quite coy on these kind of things and tends to leave that kind of announcement to the club. Doesn't like to steal anyone's thunder sitting in the press conference, does he?
Well, he now has somebody to leave it to.
Yeah,
and we know what the structure is now. Now, I would imagine if that's been signed today, Ross Wilson hasn't come in on Monday and done that already. I wouldn't imagine. I would imagine there's been groundwork being done before that point. If not, you hit the ground running. But it's all that. This is the kind of squad management that we've got wrong over the last few years on occasion, and we can't be letting people run down contracts. We've got to protect the value of players in the squad, particularly ones the manager would like to keep around. Like you, I like a bit of continuity in the goalkeeping department. I think Ramsdale's been brought in to increase the competition for him. But that competition's healthy. And it seems like it's a healthy goalkeeping department at the moment. So, again, news to me, but I don't think it's something we should be unhappy about.
I've just stuck the link in from the Shields Gazette there. It's the first one that's come up on online. I'm just going through a few others, but it's there. It's definitely been exercised, so it's definitely true, Steve. So good. Yeah, it's good news, Steve. That's one down and a few more to go, I guess. On terms of who will stay and who will go.
Yeah, I mean, good news for the squad. Good news for Nick Pope. I'm perfectly honest. If this was last season, I think people would be probably of a slightly different opinion because his form was pretty poor. Then he was out injured, but when he came back, and we did that sort of whatever you could call it deal or whatever with Dubravka, that saw Dubravka stay and then suddenly get ousted and Nick Pope come straight back in as number one. It was pretty obvious then that Nick Pope was considered by Eddie as his number one. And I think reading into it now, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but also is that ability to not need to look forward, because what happened with Dubravka obviously was that they said, look, you can leave at the end of the season. We'll not stand in your way and we'll find you a good deal. And he got one from Burnley, which meant that we had to bring another goalkeeper in. And I think Mitch has hit the nail on the head: competition. Nick Pope is possibly one of those goalkeepers that needs the competition, the complacency that can take hold with a goalkeeper, the lack of confidence that comes with mistakes and errors. But if you've got no one behind breathing down your neck, it can lead to that sort of complacency, or the fact that you know that you're not going to get ousted because the only person behind you is a youngster. So bringing Ramsdale in has probably been a master stroke, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with Ramsdale at the end of the season. It'll be also interesting to see what happens to Nick Pope if he gets another injury and Ramsdale gets a run in the team, because from what we've seen in cup matches this season, and the odd appearance in a pre-season friendly, Ramsdale hasn't really done anything wrong. He's obviously a good goalkeeper, and obviously a really good lad around the squad, because we're seeing him doing all sorts of little things off the pitch.
Yeah.
You know, that little piece that he did with the lady, the old lady who went to visit him, or he went to visit her, vice versa. You know, those are you know, partly PR, but also shows that the player is part of the squad. He's part of the fabric of the club, and he gets it. You know, he could have an agent who would turn around and go, "No, you're not doing that," or "We don't want to do that," or he could be the sort who would take the sulk and say, "I'll not do it until I get into the first team," or something like that. But obviously he's not. So he's obviously a good kid to have around. But it's competition for Pope. And you know what? We cannot really knock Nick Pope in because of the form that he's shown this season. His distribution can be poor. It seems to have improved slightly. He's kicking. The last couple of games, we didn't hear that sort of whoosh of anxiety when the ball gets played back to him that sometimes occurred last season and the season before, because that is an area of Nick Pope's game that, when a player has a fault, or is not particularly sort of adept at a particular move, and it's terrible for a goalkeeper, the back pass to him, and straight away the crowd are immediately going, "Oh no, what's going to happen here?" And so we create the anxiety sometimes on the terraces for him, and I don't think it's a healthy way to go about it. So. Great for him. Great for a bit of stability in the club. But he's got competition, and that's can only be a good thing.
Joseph, good evening. Yeah, your feelings on Nick Pope exercising his option to stay?
Evening, everyone. Yeah, sorry I was late, Steve. Yeah, well, it's a good thing, isn't it? I agree with the lads. Continuity, particularly at the goalkeeper position, is vitally important to a team, isn't it? And I think, like Steve said, maybe 12, 18 months ago, had we been talking about extensions to contracts, we all might have slightly looked at each other slightly quizzically. But actually, I think there was a real turning point, and I think it was the cup final, because I thought he was absolutely outstanding in that cup final, as was everybody else, of course. We won it, by the way, in case you're wondering. But I thought he was brilliant, and I thought he showed why he's got England caps and why he's been playing in England's top division for so long. And I don't think he's particularly let us down, particularly with his saves since. Yes, there's a few questionable kicks, and I agree with Steve that, like, oh no, whenever we think about looking like we're going to pass it backwards, but he's a top goalkeeper. You know, he's a Champions League goalkeeper now, isn't he? With England caps behind him, as I've said. So I think the Ramsdale thing was interesting. You know, he came in the summer, and I think a few of us again were wondering, is this our new number one? But actually, what Nick Pope's done is he said, "No, pal, I'm number one." I'll continue to be number one, and all being well, that's where I'll stay, Ramsdale or no Ramsdale. So it's good. Competition's healthy. We kind of get in competition, albeit without a centre forward, but every position now has got somebody breathing down your neck. And I think we've done that with the goalkeepers. Dubravka was always solid, wasn't he? But I think since his loan spell at Manchester United, I was never overly convinced he was ever staying for another month beyond that one. And finally, we've got two decent lads, two good goalkeepers, and that can only be a good thing. So good luck to him.
Yeah, good stuff. And plenty of questions coming in. We'll try and get through as many as we can, as always. Tom Dixon was asking our thoughts on Josh Kenshington, who's poised to be coming in. Again, it's another young wonder kid, but my mindset would be that, we need to really be, I understand bringing kids in and buying the best thing, George, but we'll keep saying it on here. I really wish they would plough more money into the academy, which was the original plan, and start discovering the talent locally, because there's so many players who've come and gone locally who Newcastle have missed out on. Would have saved them a fortune. And in today's market with a PSR at the moment, George, a lot of those players could have been sold on for a profit if they hadn't been as good as to play for Newcastle's team. But yeah, we're still not doing it right with the academy, I don't think. But I understand why they buy these players in, George. But it's I don't know anything about this coaching, I've got to be honest.
Well, what you read about them is very interesting. But what you read about some of the others that have come in and just suddenly disappeared. I mean, I watched them play in Mansfield in the Football League Cup Trophy thing the other night. And who was on the field but Alfie Harrison, who came from Manchester City. Now, when he came in, it looked the way the Chronicle and other papers were talking about it is that he was coming in to do it Phil Foden at Newcastle because he couldn't get in at Manchester City. Well, I've seen no evidence that he's going to do that. And from what I could see the other night on TV, he was as ordinary as the other kids on the field. In fact, there was one or two others that I didn't even know the names of were good. Young Park, the Korean was good, and the other one, is it Nani Nain, the centre forward that's a good under 21 at the moment.
Neve.
Neve. Sorry, yeah, and he was good. But the one that stood out for me was a lad I'd never even heard of called McFarlane, and he scored the equalising goal in the last minute. He looked brilliant. I've never even heard of him. And they're the ones I would like to see coming through. You're absolutely right, Steve. If they were bringing people in who were within a year were starting to knock on the door of the first team, there may be evidence to say that's going well. But I can't see that evidence, and the evidence is that below under 21s, we haven't got much by the sound of it. And that's quite sad. So we need to get our socks rolled up and pull some more into the academy from wherever. We've had a steady stream of Scots lads and Irish lads over the years. Well, let's do some more of that, rather than just sort of ad hoc stuff from anywhere. So, we need. It's still an area we need to do some work. There's no question.
Mitch, like I said, the other clubs are way ahead of us with regards to academies. Maybe part of this will be down to the improvement of the training ground as well. The training facilities and stuff like that. Maybe that'll improve. Maybe they're waiting until that period when they build a purpose-built stadium. Purpose-built training ground, and maybe that'll be all part of it then. But maybe they don't want to invest in what they've got at the minute.
We can only, with regards to with youngsters coming in, we can only really go off what we're told in the press and media. You might as well be asking us who Albino and Dick Burns and Mo Lester are, as far as I'm concerned. They're just names, really. One thing for sure, if you listen to what Steve Harper's had to say in the last few days, one thing that absolutely hamstrung us was the previous catchment area ruling, where 50% of our catchment area was the North Sea.
Yeah.
And so the removal of that, or the slackening of that, is what's allowed us to make some of the signings that we're making now. But equally, we have let talent go elsewhere. We've let talent go to Middlesbrough. We've let talent go to Sunderland. And I've told you my feelings about comparing the academies at Newcastle and Sunderland when Josh was sort of in and around them. And it kills me to say the one that looked after him best was Sunderland. By a country mile, by the way. But, moving on now, and we are moving on, but we've suffered with sort of a few wilderness years, and that's what we're still suffering from now, and that's partly why we're playing catch-up. So it's great to see we're making the right kind of signings and we're attracting the right kind of players. Yes, we've got to do the right things with them. Just to agree with comments in the thing, no, Shola doesn't pick where they go. Shola doesn't do the deals for where they're going and who they're playing for. He's there to look after their welfare and well-being, wants to go there. And that's what he does, amongst other things. So blaming Shola for people not playing games when they're away on loan is barking up the wrong tree. It's the system that we need to be looking at. And again, what we're having people put into place now in terms of sporting director, and I forget what the title they've given Jack Ross is, but again, that's on them to ensure continuity and that people are getting what they should be out of these loans. And it's for some of them, it's not just about playing games. For some of them, it's about learning to live on their own, standing on their own 2 feet, learning how to use a washing machine. For some of them, it's about getting toughened up in another dressing room and learning how to interact with other fellow professionals. Yes, if they're getting game time and they're playing well and they're coming out of it with even, more than that, that's fantastic. But there's lots of different reasons why players might be sent on loan. And we just have to kind of trust to the people that are doing it, because we really don't know why it's being done. And so I think going forward, there's definitely improvements being made. They're striving to take everything in the right direction. But I agree with you, Steve, in that we really need to be fostering those links closer to home and strengthening those closer to home than we have had of late. Because there's potential, there still remains a potential conveyor belt of young talent that we miss, that does seem to disappear elsewhere. And that's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, people have obviously all got opinions. Yeah, Barry's been attacked in the chat. Shola doesn't do the job that you think he does, Barry. Yeah, it is a little bit confusing when someone's called the Lone Ranger when he's not really the Lone Ranger. But yeah, I get where you're coming from, Barry, but he doesn't do that job. So fair enough. I think everyone's made their point, so we don't need to labour on that. And the point I'm trying to make is that we are buying lots of players, Ian. And maybe it's the media that hypes them up. Alfie Harrison was the next Haaland. We've been there with Brayson when he came through the academy. He was going to be the next Mickey Quinn, and the next Jackie Milburn, and I mean, great goal scorer at lower league level, Paul, by the way, but was never going to be, a first division player back in the day. But I just think that it's the investment in the academy. I speak to, a lot of people who have lots of opinions about the academy. Some go and watch the academy. Some may be involved with the academy. And I keep my ear to the ground with that. The word coming out is it's still not good enough. And that's not a reflection on the job that Steve Harper's doing, not by a long shot. But what it is, it's an investment problem. They're not investing, and ultimately when I sat down in 2017 and sat with Amanda and me, Dad, in those very early days when the takeover was just a pipe dream, there was talk of big investment in the academies. There was talk of Chelsea putting in 20 million a year, whereas Mike Ashley was putting in 1 million a year. And I because when you look at the club accounts, you can't work out where we're at with investment in the academy. It's very difficult to say what we're actually putting in and what we're not putting in. But what you can see at the moment is, we're not really progressing. We're not finding an Andy Carroll or a Paul Dummett or a Steve Watson or a Robbie Elliott in the academy at the moment. And what we're having to do is we're having to go out and buy young up-and-coming players. And, again, there's nothing wrong with buying players in, but what I'm saying is those links really should be established with Redheath boys, Wallsend boys, Blue Star on the doorstep. They've got a wonderful setup at Blue Star these days. There's so many great clubs locally who could be linked with the club in some way, shape or form. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make. It's not a criticism. It's just a question mark over where. And look, investment has to go to the first team, because without the first team, everything else collapses around it. They're making big inroads with the women's team. There's huge things happening with with the women's team. They've got them to a certain level, but now there really does need to be an effort on all sides, maybe to help them make that next jump. Hence the big investment that they've made into that. But the academy, really, for the first team, is the most important thing, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Steve, coming to you.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, another player. There was an article in I think it was the Newcastle World last week about Alliance Sorensen. Came over, a big reputation. When you read the article and you see he's back over in Sweden, banging the goals in after doing the rounds at various clubs this country where he didn't do anything, scoring goals again. Then he comes back over and he tries again and doesn't quite make it. There's obviously something in him that allows him to have that talent to score goals, but also that whether or not he's just not physical enough or strong enough, or there's a mental block when it comes to the pace of the game over here. But he was a player that we were hanging our hat on about 4 or 5 seasons ago. I've just had to do strikeout on Loner Ranger as well. I've had to take it out because for me, Shola was the Loner Ranger. I think there's a little bit of a how can you say it, juxtaposition taking place where I think it's taken a little bit of flack off him, to be perfectly honest. I know people will condemn me for that, but that was as far as we were always concerned, that was his job, to look after those players. And if we're saying now that he doesn't have anything to do with where they go, it's just when they get there, then what does that entail? Because he never seems to be away visiting them and watching them, and you never hear reports coming back from them, and the lads aren't getting a game where they are. So I'm not convinced on that one. As for the academy itself, I mean, I've wrote a little piece in the fanzine about Wallsend Boys Club and the fact that they're now heading towards 100 players that have come from the boys club system in Wallsend who have made it through as professionals. That's an amazing situation. The fact they're now with Elliot Anderson, I think that was the 6th lad from a boys club who's represented England at full international, and I think there are 2 other lads who have represented other countries, Canada and New Zealand, if I remember rightly from the article. And I didn't realise it was how productive the boys club was, because I'd taken my eye off the ball. It wasn't until I met Steve Dale, who's the chairman, a couple of weeks ago before he went in for his knee replacement, and he was telling me all about the success they've had, but the problems that they have. And I think there's a deep-seated issue with academies. Steve, you mentioned Chelsea and you mentioned the money that they invested. That the investment in an academy is also a very, very clever way of moving money around for PSR, because whatever they say in the accounts they're spending, it doesn't get counted for PSR, but nobody knows what they're actually spending.
No, Chelsea wouldn't do that, Steve.
Of course they wouldn't. We know that Chelsea are spending every single penny of that 20 million, don't we, on academy product players. But it is a bit of a misnomer. And there are, I mean, anyone who listens to the Price of Football podcast with Kieran Maguire will hear him say on many occasions that, there are some dubious figures put in by clubs at the top on the amount of money that they spend on the academy that just gets basically ticked that box when it goes up to the Premier League. But I don't think we're the sort of club that does that, because the amount of money that we seem to quote that we're spending is next to nought, as you've already stated, Steve. But I think that there's a fundamental issue with the academy, and that is that they pick up kids when they're 8-year-old, and that's it. The kids then follow the way through. You'll notice that the 14 and 15 and 16-year-olds that they're picking up are not from this area. They're not picking up those 14, 15 and 16-year-olds. They've already watched those kids and they've already struck them off and said they're not for us. So they're not even bothering going out and looking at that level of the game. The scouts that we've got are extended far and wide, and they're picking up 15-year-old kids from who are potentially going to other football clubs. And this lad that we're talking about is a prime example. He's 150 mile away, but we think we can get him, and we're going to spend £375,000 on him, which is basically £375,000 that goes to the club he's currently signed schoolboy or forms with, as we used to call it. But the other issue you have when you take an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old and you follow them through, then all of a sudden it becomes like in their head they're going to be the next Shearer, and 99 out of 100 do not become the next Shearer. In fact, 999 out of 1,000 do not become the next Shearer. Their hopes and aspirations are built from such a young age, and then when they get to the point where they get the rejection, they can't handle the rejection, and with that is where the game loses out. The game loses out, and we talk an awful lot in this country about the pyramid, but the pyramid would be an awful lot stronger. But a lot of those kids literally drop right out of the game when they're 17 and 18-year-old. They don't, because the opportunities aren't there. So fundamentally, there's a huge thing that needs to be considered, and the relationship that the academy, that our academy or our club has with the likes of the boys clubs that you've mentioned there, Steve. I don't know how strong that relationship is. The relationship may be strong between Wallsend boys clubs and individual players who were previously at the academy, whether it's Michael Carrick or whether it's Steve Bruce or Alan Shearer or Peter Beardsley, players that do things to help. But I don't know what the relationship is between the likes of Steve Harper and spending his time at Wallsend and working with Wallsend and allowing the players that perhaps the football club are interested in to flourish in a slightly less pressurized environment at the boys club, rather than going into what turns into 15 or what they think are 15 elite players who probably play less football than any 11, 12, 14-year-old does at the boys club, where they can still play for the school team, they can still play for the boys club on a Saturday morning, they can still play for a boys club team on a Sunday, they can still turn up for training, they can also play for a different boys club on a Sunday if they want. They can play with their friends, they can move quite easily. There's a rigidity about once you get into the academy that kind of stifles the games somewhat. And I think what it does is it makes the coaching, well, certainly makes the scouting not as invested in the area. I think that they think there's probably more wins outside, and also the international. I mean, I've had this discussion with somebody a couple of weeks ago. How does, and I'll probably get this wrong and I'll probably be torn apart by it, but how do you spot a young kid in Nigeria or Ghana who, and when you read the stories when they turn professional, have been playing even without boots, in bare feet and kicking what is not even a proper case ball, as I would call it, a proper football, and they show all the talent. And then you hear that kid then make some journey up through Africa, and he gets into Belgium and he plays like Ciotti did, like Czech, and then they get spotted and they start playing there. Then they come over here, and yet we've got kids going into our academy, and they're giving everything. They're giving the top-notch facilities. They're playing on the top-notch pitches. They've got all the kit, and yet they don't make it. And it's like there's something. I'm not saying there's anything wrong on the Czech type side of it, but there's something wrong on our side of it that it allows that huge diverge, that gap, that trench that the players can't cross for some reason. And maybe it's because we're going back to the whole adage that we talked about just a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Lewis Miley, that for every Lewis Miley, you need another 10 players simply to play alongside him, so that you can get the best out of a Lewis Miley, because it's a team game and you need 11 players on the pitch. Lewis Miley could be the best player in the world, but if he hasn't got 10 other players in the team, he's crap. You know, he's not gonna make it. So a lot of times when you get to like 15, 16, 17, they've already spotted the talent, they've spotted the top player that they think's going to get, and the rest of them are there merely to make up the numbers. And they are often the players that fall by the wayside as well. It's I suppose you could argue that that's the nature of the game, that's the nature of football. But I think surely to God there must be, if you can't seriously be putting out 10 other players just to support one. Surely some of that other 10 would also make the grade, you know, because they're all getting the same sort of coaching and they're all getting the same sort of opportunities, and they're playing on the same sort of pitches, and they're getting the same fitness regimes and the same dietary things, and yet there's only one makes it. I just find it rather odd. And maybe it's the whole in the round thing that you have to look at with the academy.
I think it's something, Steve, if you don't mind us jumping in, fundamentally wrong worldwide, because you see the many academies over here, some of them in each age group revolve around one player.
Yeah.
And from the many academies here, some of them go into the English game, and you just played with some of them over here. And you see it. You see that the entire class is focused really around one player. And then don't even get us started on lower league football here. The stories of players being brought over from Africa on a pittance of a wage, sleeping into a room, and being expected to do like a doorman's job through the day and then play football at the weekend. And there's all sorts of allegations at certain individuals over here. And this is something that I think FIFA need to be jumping all over, really. But that's a you know, I'm digressing really, but certainly it's not just a problem in our academies, it's a problem with the academies over here. You speak to the guys involved with the academies here, they get very frustrated with some of the lesser academies, one should say here, that are effectively circles of nepotism.
Yeah. I'll tell you what's interesting as well with the academy, and moving on from like sort of the schoolboy age to the next level, so that your 16 to 18-year-olds and your 18 plus. There was a time when those players were, as you mentioned, they're left to their own devices in a way where that get out in the world, go on loan for a year, turn into a man, start living yourself, learn how to use a washing machine and stuff like that. I do know that Newcastle United have gone the other way, and they're bringing in more of that old school, the way it used to be, the way that George will remember, certainly, where players lodged with families in the area. And you know, Roy Keane was a perfect example when you hear him talking about when he went to Forest, and you listen to some of the Man United players who shared rooms back in the 80s with in houses and stuff like that. And
I'll never forget my 2 weeks at Burnley, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, but I can certainly say that even those players who are lodging, because I've seen it firsthand, they are doing a little bit for themselves if the number of Deliveroo and Just Eats deliveries that come into our street are concerned. I'll just leave it at that.
Joseph, your views on the academy? And I mean, I just started this off because obviously, you know, Tom had asked us about that player coming in. I don't know anything about it, but you know, you get the gist. What's your feelings on the academy and how we're going to improve it?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because, you know, we're all sat here wanting instant success. So we're all sat here wanting to find the next big thing that we can, you know, he might be 15, but he'll score 30 goals in the Premier League next season. So I get it. I understand that we've got people out there hoovering these kids up. I mean, imagine being worth 350 grand when you were 15. I mean, it's incredible. But I've said it before, I've said it a million times. It's not necessarily about getting these lads, is it? Finding them is one thing, signing them is another thing, but it's then what we do with them. Because if there's an aspiration at 15 that he's good enough to, he looks like he's going to be a first teamer, it's about getting everything right. What are the correct loan opportunities? Where's he going to get meaningful games of football? Where's he going to get kind of, the hard yards in the legs and all the rest of it? Because these lads aren't going to get it on an academy pitch, because often we churn out robots. We train the same way, we do the same drills, we do the same thing day in, day out. And I think thinking about some of those kind of African players, for example, and some of the Europeans and the South Americans that Steve's talking about, the coaching's a bit more raw. These kids have got the opportunity to go out and express themselves and enjoy themselves, and and do the things that they enjoy doing, the things that we all dreamed of doing, or we did when we were in the playground, But when you join a football club at 8 years old, you all dress the same and you all turn up at the same time, you all do the same thing, and it's regimented. And that's why you end up with a load of kids that all look the same. And that's why you maybe get 1 in 100 as opposed to, a field full. So I get the need for, we've got to keep up with the Joneses. We've got to, we're aspiring to clubs like Manchester City, aren't we? And Chelsea. They've spent years and years going around buying up all of these top youngsters. But it would be nice to think that, we could do that whilst also investing in the academy, and getting that right from the bottom up, the links with the schools, the links with the local football clubs. Even I remember, and I'm much younger than you lot, as I keep reminding you, but we get the whole, the Northeast was the hotbed of football, wasn't it? This was the place where all the best players come from. And unfortunately, you get the odd Lewis Miley aside. But it seems to have stagnated. It seems to have slowed down, which is why we've got to go to Barnsley and why we've got to go to Manchester and all the rest of it to get these kids now. So it'd be lovely to think that there was roots. Middlesbrough, the town that I live in, this football club's been getting it right for years and years and years. The Churn first team footballers out like no tomorrow. So why can't we be like that? But then we've got to remind ourselves that we've had years and years and years of abject management. It was always going to get driven into the ground, wasn't it? The whole place was driven into the ground. Such no wonder that the academy's in the state that it is. However, you get the right people. Hopefully, this is our third director of football in the new regime. Hopefully, part of what Ross Wilson will be doing is really, really thinking about this and really, really giving it some time and thought. It's not all about the next Sandro Tonali. That's the instant results bit. But actually, Ross, who's going to replace Sandro Tonali in 15 years' time? Because if these rules stay and we're not allowed to spend the infinite wealth that we've got to get our footballers from somewhere. So why not get them from Gateshead, from Dunstan, from wherever? Because that's where we should be getting them. We always wanted a team of 11 Geordies. We said that for years. Wouldn't it be nice? We're nowhere near that. It's a lifetime away, but we're an aspirational football club now. So let's aspire to have an academy that's on par with Real Madrid and AC Milan and all of these other teams. But like the first team, we're just going to have to sit and wait, unfortunately. And if that means in the meantime signing a kid for 350 grand, that's what we're going to have to do.
Happy birthday to Dot Barron, 98 today.
Wow.
That's incredible. Happy birthday, Dot. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you for sharing us with that, Ian. Question for you, George. Does George remember Jackie Milburn playing for Sunderland during the war as a guest?
Yes. And he played for other teams as well, yeah. But he did play for Sunderland, yeah. Right. I mean, what people don't often remember and sometimes don't even know, Jackie Milburn's best friend in football was Len Shackleton, who was the Sunderland hero, Him and Jackie were best buddies and their wives were until their careers ended,
Yeah, lots of comments coming in about the academy stuff. Agree, Joe, says Benny, when Man City or Chelsea sign a youth academy player, they already have a plan for the player by virtue of multi-club ownership, clubs at different levels. I don't understand why it makes sense to loan players out to low-level overseas teams. Get them in the AFL. Cordero was wanted by Madrid and now only played 83 minutes in 9 games in Belgium. It's pointless, says Bri. Certainly gets people talking. Were you going to make another point, Mitch? No, I thought you were. Going to say something before I asked that Jackie Milgren question. Will Ross Wilson make a huge difference to our poor transfer contract strategy? Says Michael. I mean, that's your opinion. I mean, I think we've had a decent transfer strategy, Michael, albeit against the PSR rules, which has been an absolute nightmare. But George, I mean, listening to Eddie today, he's known Ross for a few years.
Yeah.
And when he's seen him, he's only spoken to him in a brief encounter kind of way, but he's not like a close friend, and he wasn't involved in the process to recruit him. Those are the important factors I took from the press conference today, which I'm sure most people did sitting on this panel tonight if you'd watched it. All of this kind of, well, we're waiting and Eddie will be part of the process. It's vitally important, blah, blah, blah. The only positive thing he really said about Ross Wilson today was that he's all for having a sporting director. It is important. But he does like to be involved in the process and he does like to run the club his way. So, part of me just hopes Ross Wilson is going to do it in the right way. And that means not upset Eddie. Otherwise, he could find himself walking out the door again. He did actually laugh when somebody said it's the third one in as many years, and he laughed at that. But I mean, Ross Wilson's only as good as the relationship he's got with Eddie Howe, George, really.
Well, and vice versa, isn't it? It's got to be a two-way street. And I've got to say that if somebody can do what Ross Wilson's done at Nottingham Forest, with the owner like they've had and the various managers they've had, and he's still been able to recruit and feed a team that was going for promotion, and then have to feed another team that got promotion and got into the Premiership and got them up to European football. He's been involved in all of that. So if he's capable of working with that, I suspect working with Eddie Howe would be a dream for him, because Eddie's got an idea what he wants and how to communicate it. So I'll be amazed if it isn't a big improvement of what we've been used to. I mean, it's difficult to go on much more about it, because everything you know about him is paper talk mostly. However, it is interesting that he was happy enough to say that, indicate how long he kind of known him and all that sort of thing. So, no, I'm content that something had come out of it. And as I say, my hope is that somebody like Ross, that just come from a club that seems to be eternally in turmoil because of its owner, and he survived all that and still supplied them with top-class players. It's worked well for them, so let's hope he can make it work well for us.
Steve, we picked it up. He wasn't really involved in the process, Steve, is what I got. I mean, I'm not trying to make a mischief of that particular quote. At the end of the day, Eddie can't do everything. His job is to coach the team. He keeps telling you that every time he does his press conference. But yeah, I mean, what was your take on it, Mitch? I've got my own views, but I
don't think you could make the whole thing much worse.
Right.
Really.
Okay. The question was, is Ross Wilson going to make things better? But I don't think it's a massive disaster, the transfer window since the takeover.
It isn't, mate. But I think I get where Michael's coming from. I think it's clear, reading between the lines, from what's been said publicly, and more importantly, sometimes what hasn't been said. The whole situation with Isaac could have been happily avoided with somebody doing their job better. And that didn't happen. And so we can't have that happen again. Thank you very much. I think squad management has been poor, and by God, we've got some squad management to do, with players hitting the end of contracts and with players aging, and we've got some decisions to make. And we need people in the right position to make those decisions. I'm very tired of hearing the negative stuff about Ross Wilson. Most of that comes from Rangers fans.
Yeah.
But that's Rangers fans who have won nothing since he left. Nothing. Yeah. In the league that they're in, where they should at least be winning the bloody League Cup or something every year, they've won out since he left. so they can call them all they like. You've gone downhill since he left, and I don't think that's a coincidence. What he did with Southampton was create that culture that led them to be effectively what Brighton are to Chelsea, where they've sold God knows how many players to Liverpool and made a massive profit out of it. So he certainly seems to have, good aptitude in certain areas, and that areas we need to improve in. We need to be better at player sales. It's something we're rubbish at. We need to be, understanding about the squad management, and and not be left with 10 million goalkeepers and short of a striker and this, that, and the other. And this is all things that he should be working with the recruitment team and with the manager. And it's a team effort. And there's I think everybody knows they've got a clearer definition about what their roles are. And like I said, when I was on with you for 15 minutes or so with the professionals at the weekend, he's not a big name, he's not a Maldini or what have you. But sometimes what we want is not what we need. And what we need is somebody to create and work within the structure and help the club develop, help the squad develop, help the manager achieve what he wants with the signings he wants, help move players on who are coming to the end of their usefulness, and do it with a bit of dignity and respect and happiness, and not any issues, not have anybody going on strike, not have anybody disappearing up on their own arses, and all of that kind of thing. It gets harder and harder in the modern game when you're managing egos and you're massaging and tickling tummies every 5 minutes. So I think you have to look at where he's come from and the job he did at Forest. He seems to have managed very well. He seems to be one of the few long-term survivors of Marinakis. And having spoken to my pal Dr. Thanos, who is now Panathinaikos' team dentist, he was Olympiakos' team dentist, and he worked with Marinakis, and he had Marinakis physically bring a player down to his bloody surgery at 1 o'clock in the morning. This is the kind of bloke he's to deal with, and he's not easy. And so he's navigated all of that and come out of it with dignity and with a lovely thanks from Nottingham Forest. There's no animosity there. And so I think you have to respect that and just let him get on with his job.
Every time you see Marinakis, I think of Bez from the Happy Mondays for some reason. I can't help it. Twisting me mouth. Steve, Ross Wilson, it was the worst kept secret. Now he's been appointed, and Mitch is right. The criticism does come from the Rangers supporters. Yeah. But you know what? It's been, it was fascinating, wasn't it, to see the press conference today, because Eddie doesn't give a great deal away. And I just thought that I think the question was asked as usual. People wasting questions 3 times in completely different ways, but he just gives the same answer, doesn't he? But Eddie has a bit of fun with it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think so, and I think what Eddie was also doing, as you say, reacting to the silly question by telling a certain few of those assembled pressmen, you got it wrong, lads. I don't know. You've been writing for God knows how long that when we've been waiting for him to arrive, that I was part of the process, and we were good friends, and we'd been going back years and years and years. And we've seen that. We've seen it in some of the column inches from some of the national and local reporters that attend the press conferences, and they got it wrong. Simple as that. And some of the podcasters have got it wrong, because we've listened to podcasts before from people who have told us how wonderful Wilson is, but how wonderful the relationship is, and he's just what Eddie wanted, blah blah blah. And I think Eddie was either having a bit of fun at certain people's expense, or he was just letting them know that he does listen to what they say, he does listen to what read what they write, and he's prepared to tell them in his own inimitable way when they've got it wrong. Ross Wilson, he's gonna. I think I said it on the professionals last week. The jury's out until he's done a season or two. it's all well and good saying how wonderful someone has been at Nottingham Forest or Southampton or Reading or wherever else he's been, Rangers. But at the end of the day, it's what Newcastle United that matters as far as I'm concerned. And if he can steady the ship, if he can work with Eddie Howe, because that's the key, work with Eddie Howe to produce the sort of environment around the club that Eddie is insisting on having. And if he's part of that process and part of the evolution of the football club and making it tick the way Eddie wants it to tick, because at the end of the day, it's Eddie's head that's on the block when it comes to who we sign and who we don't, because Eddie is the one who has to work with those players. And we've seen it many times with Eddie in terms of, and because we're talking about it with players coming to the end of contract, he has a loyalty. I think sometimes the loyalty that Eddie perhaps has had with certain players is down to the fact that he feels as though if he let them go, he wouldn't get the type of replacement that he was looking for. So better the devil you know than keeping the devil that you've got rather than taking somebody else's devil. So I think there's often an element of that with football managers, but it's all well having a sporting director or a director of football, but they've got to work as a team. They've got to be able to work as a team. And we've seen with Dan Ashworth, not necessarily when he was at Newcastle, but certainly when he went to Manchester United, how quickly that relationship, after they spent £5 million trying to get him, can evaporate. When you bring someone in above him, as happened with Ashworth, or when a manager wants to target certain players and he feels as though it's not going to fit in. We've seen it at Newcastle with Mitchell, where he's decided that he wants to. There's a certain way that he wants to manage his role, if you like, and it's his way or the highway. And
my teams,
teams,
yep. And he sort of ruffled far too many feathers and paid the price, if you like. And I thought Eddie managed that really, really well. No question about that. But let's just let Wilson do his own thing, get his feet under the table, and going back to some of the hysteria that we have. I saw a photograph, I think it was yesterday, that was flying around on social media, and this is a perfect example of the previous topic we were talking about, where there was a picture of Eddie. And I think Jason Tyndall was in it. Ross Wilson was in it. There was at least one other person stand alongside, and in the background there were one or two of the juniors, so the youngsters, under 18s, under 16s, whatever, in the photograph, watching, sitting behind. And straight away, people were like, "Oh, look at that! He's gonna get an opportunity at the first team. Look at him! He's going to get an opportunity. That's so and so. He's going to get an opportunity." Lads, it was international week. They needed youngsters in for to fill the spaces in the training so they could have 11 against 11 because we had so many players out on international duty. So just calm my chickens at times, you know. Again, a perfect example of trying to big up or people trying to big up a youngster perhaps as the next big thing just because they've seen a photograph of him standing or sitting in a dugout behind the first team coach and manager and such like, and the sporting director. I think that it was designed so that people would go, Ross Wilson's brought him straight in. Look, he thinks he's the big, and he's going to be telling that type of ridiculous situations. And let's face it, social media loves stuff like that. We'll have Newcastle fans now talking about it for weeks, saying, you know, that particular youngster and this particular youngster are going to be the next big thing. And on Wednesday, they didn't even know who the kid was. By Thursday, he's the next Phil Foden. Crazy.
That is the nature of the beast. If you want accurate information, you go to Francis Chip these days. I think we all know that. He's had a field day this last couple of weeks. He's been mentioned in press conferences today, which is brilliant. Spurs press conference today. I think he was mentioned. Newcastle, you got to mention as well at the press conference. But it shows the stupidity of social media, really. And we've tried it. create that sensible narrative on here for 5 years now, where we say don't get carried away, wait until the club announce it, etc., etc., etc. But sometimes people just like getting carried away. Social media.
Even Andy Jacobs on Talk Sport this afternoon said when they were talking about that particular story of being lost in the maze, he said he thought it was true. He genuinely thought it was true. And he was like, "Have I been hoodwinked?" He thought it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
It really is. I can't even remember what the story was now, but I'm sure it was right at the start of this podcast. I think we fed something out there just to see how quickly the press would take it on Twitter. And it took 2 days, and I can't even remember what it was. I'd have to go back through quite a few bits and bobs that I've kept along the way. But we really, I couldn't believe it. It took 2 days for somebody to pick it up. It's shoddy journalism, unfortunately. It's journalists don't have contacts anymore to go on social media and pick up the loose change on there and print it as fact, and that can backfire on you like a maze story. Ross Wilson, before the ads, get your opinions on that appointment, please, Joe.
Yeah, well, it can only be a good thing, can't it? If you think about the achievement at Rangers, that was a club that was on its downers and back in the trophies and back into Europe. And then off he went to Nottingham Forest, and since they've been promoted, certainly the recent years, they've made some fantastic signings. And not just the Morgan Gibbs Whites of this world, but they've made some very, very good signings and embedded themselves as a fairly decent Premier League side, and he's got to played a part in that. So hopefully, if he can bring some of that to Newcastle United, then brilliant. I get the sense he doesn't bring the ego with him. Dan Ashworth was number one in the game, wasn't he? And he was going to come and be number one at our club, and the Yankee dollar kind of, took his attention away from us, shall we just say? And then we got the next best thing in Mitchell, and I get the sense now in hindsight that yes, I am Alan. Yes, it is me. I get the sense that it was never going to kind of work between him and Eddie Howe, was it? There was always something amiss. Big mate to the chief exec, and the manager was in the crosshairs. He's gone now. Some might say thankfully. I appreciate that there's a modicum of a previous relationship between Howe and Wilson, because I think that helps. It's not like another stranger coming in, and you've got to get to know each other and start from day one. So I think as long as people are clear about the roles and responsibilities, as long as Wilson doesn't make statements like my team, that would help. And as long as he listens to Eddie Howe in terms of this is the type of footballer that we need, and this is what I think will work well within the system, what could possibly go wrong? It's an exciting time. Yes, I said that when Ashworth came in. Yes, we said that when Mitchell came in. But what a job! There can't be many better jobs in British, if not world football at the minute, than the director of football at Newcastle United. The training ground, the stadium, the Champions League nights, the push for Premier League glory. We're on our uppers. And if this guy is as good as we're led to believe he is, it can only be a good thing, can't it? So let's have a bit of stability. I hope he can manage to stay longer than 6 months or whatever. I hope he doesn't upset Eddie, because that'll only go one way. And I hope they do that. What Eddie's talking about is we need to work together. And I think by working together as a football department, not only will it be good for the first team, it's good for the ladies, it's good for everything else. You know what I mean? Yeah. So good luck with the lad.
Just before you go, the one thing I would say for a sporting director or a director of football, don't turn up at the training ground wearing training kit. Just stick
in your boots.
Yeah. Halfway through the show, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them at www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk, email info@mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com, email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com, telephone 01670 632 460 or 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you like listening to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network or to iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, then hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the little thumb up under the video, which is the like button, or click share to share to your social media. You can also join the channel on YouTube by hitting the join button for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become an NUFC Matters member, you can go to nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. It's a £25 one-off fee. You get your pen, you get your badge, a key ring, you get your beer mat and your fridge magnet and your membership card, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk for that. And we have an event early next year, 13th of February 2026, an evening with Beardsley, Waddle and Gascoigne takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. To buy your tickets for that event, go to the box office 0191 243 1171 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk. Just managed to keep me laughing after Steve Hasty sent a potential tweet of the week for next week. Anyway, welcome back to the show. We have got a few other events coming up. The Christmas do takes place on the 21st of November at the Irish Centre. Tickets are £12. Joe Allen will be doing a little bit of a meet and greet and a chat with Warren Barton, who was over from the US that weekend. It's just before the Man City home game, of course, so it's a good little prelude on the Friday night. Adam Henderson's going to be coming along and doing a few songs, and Sid from Talking to Tune is going to be DJing that night as well. And we are going to be doing the official launch of the promoter and the photographer book that night. I just want to thank Sharon and Gary. You know who you are. They have actually sponsored the book. They have paid for the print run of the book, which means that now all proceeds from that book will be going to the charity Age UK. I'm over the moon about that. They didn't have to do that, but they have done. So a big thank you to Sharon and Gary. Much appreciated.
Good friends to NUFC Matters.
What's that, George?
I say they're good friends to NUFC Matters.
Yeah, they are, mate. Super Matt and Gibbo, 23rd of January, is now available on Woucher. Get your tickets in for that. And Peter Beardsley is on sale via the website, nufcmatters.co.uk. We like to keep you up to date as well with the stats. Here's our stats from last month. New subscribers, 24. Total views, 145,000. And minutes watched, 2.1 million. We never take it for granted. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. That's just on YouTube, of course. We do have a lot of you who watch via other manners. We are broadcasting tonight on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on YouTube and Twitter. So if you are watching on any of those other platforms, please jump over onto YouTube, hit the subscribe button on NUFC Matters. It is free. We do 7 shows a week. Okay, if you are of a nervous disposition, if you are easily offended, please go and put the kettle on now, because it is time for Tweet of the Week. Yes, if you're easily offended, it is a good time to leave. We've had some great ones sent in by the usual suspect. We've got a lookalike, first of all. Game of Thrones. Yep, it's Mozza and Alan on holiday. We can tell who wears the trousers in that house, mate, can't we, these days? And Mozza rocking a Steve Hasty look there. Very good. I'm not sure about Alan's wig there. Very, very Kevin Keegan in the 70s, Keegan perm. But he's got a big sword, Alan. So Mozza's told us that plenty of times. Anyway, Halloween's on its way, chaps. Not long now. Single guys decorating their pumpkins this week.
Oh, dear.
And go ahead, put your Christmas tree up and just throw a sheet over it for now. Like your Stu's doing that at this moment in time. And yes, sometimes unfortunate acts happen at Halloween. Not very nice. That obviously didn't give them the right amount of sweets that particular night. Why did the sperm cross the road? Why? Because my son put on the wrong socks this morning.
Oh, God.
Oh, dear.
Getting back to Halloween. Back in my day, we made our own Halloween costumes. Head gang. And please, folks, stop being offended at everything you think you see. Love a few signs. We need volunteers to stay behind and help decorate the office for Halloween. Why bother? This place is already a nightmare 365 days a year. Some food for sale, arse blasters, genuine sausages.
Suitable for freezing as well.
And if you like a bit of jazz, why not try the ass clarinet? I like a good biscuit to dunk in me tea. I won't be trying these. For those of you who are living alone at Christmas, why bother with all them dishes when you can have Christmas dinner?
Dinner.
Yes.
Scrambled egg and bacon, 2 mince pies, turkey and potatoes, gravy, bread sauce, cranberry sauce, Brussels sprouts with stuffing or broccoli with stuffing, roast carrots and parsnips and Christmas pudding at the bottom.
Sweet Jesus.
Yeah, I don't think that's real. But anyway, it was funny. 5 get salmonella after eating pies. Another lackluster effort from Enid Blyton. And I'm sorry I dropped you. Stop giving us that look. And I opened up a bakery recently and a lady phoned me up wanting a cake with I suck Cox written on it. I thought it was weird, but made it anyway. Mrs. Cox was pissed off when I delivered it. So was her son Isaac. And, people hanging flags up, it's becoming quite a common occurrence. Some people can't afford a flag. And how bad is this country getting? Brick Card, congratulations on completing 50 steps. You're now officially fit for work.
Come on.
Neil Diamond used to be called Neil Cole until the pressure got to him. And I was in a pub when this Chinese guy came in. I said, do you know Kung Fu or something? He replied, no. Are you asking me that because I'm Chinese? I said, no, it's because that's my pint you're drinking. And told my husband I was donating my clothes to starving people. He replied, anyone who fits in them isn't starving. His memorial service is tomorrow at 3 p.m. And I was walking along the street the other day when I slipped in dog shit. A minute later, some guy did exactly the same. I said to him, I just did that. So he punched me in the face and called me. And I don't always fart in Burger King, but when I do, it's a Whopper.
Oh
dear.
6-year-old looking at his mum's ID card. Sex, it says. F. He laughs. His mum says, what's so funny? The kid says, I can't believe you're so bad at sex that you failed it. His husband died laughing. And this one, when I donate blood, I extract it myself. The nurse does it for me. I understand, sir. But this is a sperm bank. It doesn't work that way here. And another one of those Facebook names, when someone asks you what you're up to tonight. And that moment you realise you're not sitting on a couch.
Yeah.
Oh.
Are those thick lens glasses? No, they're mine. And a delivery this morning in my street from Anne Summers. And we never found a cave painting of a salad, lads. Something to think about that.
Yeah.
It's not another bird. It's Steven Seagal.
Oh, God.
Time for a couple of Star Wars and a Star Trek one. Only Star Wars fans will see this.
Class.
Yeah,
I love it. It's a new one, lads. It's a new one. I always get excited when we get them.
Boba Fett.
Are you ready for Hamlet tonight? Yes, but why is the stage made up of old dictionaries? It's a play on words.
No.
And it was a big mistake challenging death to a pillow fight. I was not prepared for the repercussions.
Yeah.
When you've got no money for an MRI, but you have a friend working at the airport. And this horse pretends to be dead every time someone tries to ride it. I had a girlfriend like that. And it's always nice to see couples out enjoying the day. I just downloaded the Titanic soundtrack. It's singing right now.
Oh, yeah.
And a couple of singing ones, lads. A singer in a smoky room. Smelly wine and cheap perfume.
Go on the journey there, Steve.
And you've done nothing to help with dinner, Herman. I did the mash. I did the monster mash. He did the mash. When people talk about David Beckham, they always say that he's a brilliant footballer, but thick as two short plants. You never hear anyone saying that Stephen Hawking is a genius, but shite at football, do you? As usual, it's one rule for England captains and another for theoretical quantum physicists. And Grandpa, who ate paint thinking it was yogurt, has died. The comments steer me out. Thoughts to his family at this emotional time. Sad end, but beautiful finish. And sorry for your gloss. Last two, Daily Dafty, dating site for chickens forced to close down due to financial difficulties. The owner told the Daily Dafty, I was struggling to make ends meet.
Oh, dear.
And sprayed Febreze in my bathroom. Now it smells like citrus. Thank you, everybody. Some great ones there. I hope you weren't too easily offended. If you were, you shouldn't have started watching. Get them over to us by email, nufcmatters1892@gmail.com, or send it to the lads at their social media pages, and we will pick them up for next week. Thank you to Ian McKenna for gifting 10 memberships. Thank you to Trull for gifting 1. All goes in the Malverno pot. Simon in San Diego was asking a question about Isaac. I can't, because people go mad whenever we talk about him on here, but I don't think he would have stayed anyway. It was too far gone by then. Ian asks a question, which I think we probably had 12 months ago. I don't mind redoing it, Ian. Question for Steve. Do you think press conferences are a waste of time and money? Well, they're all getting paid anyway, Ian, but... do you enjoy the press conferences still, George? I've got to be honest. I still enjoy them. I still think that they're very valuable. I think what it does help with is that in the past, the actual press had the monopoly, and all we got was what they wanted to tell us. Whereas now we hear who asks the questions, and we get to hear the answers ourselves.
And now we've got a manager that's media savvy. They can't take a end of him, he turns it back on them sometimes. And with Eddie, we've now got used to reading behind the lines. It's sometimes what he doesn't say is important, not what he does say. Like some of the stuff today about this football director. You could read so many things into that, and he made a joke of it himself. So no, I think with a manager that's media savvy, they're valuable. As I say, you can learn more from what he doesn't say than what he does say. And sometimes from the questions as well, because, you can pick out which reporters have got what agenda, which reporters just thicky, it just sits up. So no, I still enjoy it because you learn more. You can, if you listen carefully and watch, you learn quite a lot out of it. At least I do, anyway.
Mitch?
Still find some of them frustrating. The banal questions. The questions where you're not going to answer. What do you think about Ross Wilson? Well, I think he's an absolute load of shite. I wish we'd appointed Paolo Maldini. He's just not going to say that, even if that's what he thinks. What do you think of this player? Well, he's crap. He's never going to play for us again. It's very unlikely to happen. And so what we're seeing is certain members of the press are being exposed for what they are.
Yeah.
Some of them are being exposed as they ask the questions that their paymasters tell them to, and don't deviate from it, even if they know they're going to get a straight back answer or they're going to be blanked, which is sad but revealing at the same time. I think Eddie Howe does seem to be developing a relationship with this press corps, though, where I think there's more, seems to be more warmth and less animosity in the conferences, particularly now he's not being asked to be, the arbiter of morality in sport, and he's not being asked about things which are really way above his pay station and shouldn't affect his day-to-day job. Yet he's asked for opinions on them and has been for a while. So I'm glad that's sort of backed off and cooled down now, and we can get some decent football answers. And sometimes it's not what Eddie says, it's what he doesn't say. That's actually far more important. And that just, like my dad says, shows somebody who's becoming ever more media savvy. And that's not a bad thing. I think they could be conducted better by the club. I think sometimes the club could be harder with journalists asking silly questions. But that's just a personal opinion.
Yeah, there were some daft ones today. We always get them. And we've spoken to a few journalists. We keep in touch with a few behind the scenes. And I think we've asked them on numerous occasions, why do you ask these questions? Why does such and such ask this question? Why don't people get together and decide what they're going to ask? But I like the way some of them deal with it, But, every now and then Louise Taylor comes up with some rubbish. She asked a question today she was never going to get an answer from. She even preempted the fact Eddie wasn't going to answer it, and it was more for Lee Marshall, not for Eddie. It was just, I don't know why she does it. I really, really don't. But Steve, do you still enjoy them?
I can go with them. I can, not that particularly fussed, Steve, to be perfectly honest. I think a lot of the output from the press conference now, a lot of the questioning is designed to give certain people in the media the extra half hour for their own podcast, that post-press conference own podcasts, to get them out on social media. So I think sometimes the questioning is geared to how they want to sort of control their half hour of in the limelight, where they'll go out and then they'll give us a diagnosis of everything that Eddie said. They'll break it down into the portions that they have asked. Very rarely, that you'll hear them, and he was asked this and he was asked that. But I think a lot of it, they try to manage the first, their questioning, to give them the first 10 minutes of their own output that they're planning anyway. I think that sometimes when you hear that the press lads are limited to only, one or two questions, very little opportunity for a bit of a retort or a bit of a dialogue with Eddie, where Eddie will say something, then there can be a comeback. I think sometimes you look back over the years before we had this formal press conference, and when it was like a Gibbo and he had a relationship, he would be able to hold, you literally there with his sort of shorthand, have a long conversation with a manager, but then be able to go away and write that up in such a way that it sounded interesting, it was informative, it was not controversial unless it needed to be. And I think now that they tend to have, like Lee, are a little bit wary of what the manager is going to be asked, so they try and control it. Sometimes you get the impression, like, for example, under Bruce, you always felt as though he was happy for it to be managed and he was desperate to get away at times, but that's because he was under pressure. And there has been times when Lee's cut off certain press people from their questioning because it's just not the direction that the club's decided that they want. We didn't want Eddie to be put into a situation where, as Mitch said, he's answering questions that have nothing to do with football. that are to do with politics, that are to do with takeovers, that are to do with strategic areas of business within the football club that are not really anything to do with Eddie's remit. So, yes, there can be benefits, but I think that it's simply, this business of that I get annoyed with is like Friday on Sky Sports, and it starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's got coming up soon, and it's like press conference, Eddie Howe, hearing from him soon, and then the halfway through telling about Eddie Howe, and then they suddenly find out that somebody from like Glasgow will come on. He's had his press conference at the same time, so Eddie's disposed of because they want to go up into Glasgow, and then before you know it, it's the Liverpool manager, and then it jumps at the Man U, and it's all of it, and it's just filling the airways for the whole of Friday, and it's all stage managed, and it's all part of it. Just the end of the press conferences there, just keep the TV company able, like Sky, for example, to just keep the build up for the long weekend that we then have to endure. And there's nothing worse than, I suppose, for some Newcastle fans when Eddie's doing the press conference on a Friday and the game's not till the Monday. And you think, God, there's loads that could go on between now and then. We're not really hearing the fact that, and we are often guilty of press conference on a Friday and the game's not till the Sunday or Monday. That quite often happens as well. So it just shows that we're basically just going through the motions, I think.
Do you still enjoy the press conferences, Joe?
I work for a living, so as you know,
you can still watch them when you get in on the toilet.
I know. It's old news, then, isn't it? What's the point? Steve. I was listening to Steve there, and my first thought when you asked the question was it's all just part of our obligation to do so, isn't it? It's all safe. It's as Steve said, it fills column hours and hours on Sky Sports News, waiting to see what Pep's going to say this week that's potentially no different to what he said for the last 50 weeks. I understand why they have to do it, but we live in a digital world. I'm sure there's other ways of doing it, I'm sure. It's all it's a bit safe, isn't it? And yes, Eddie's brilliant. Eddie, he's articulate and he handles everything, good, bad, or indifferent questions really, really well. I did enjoy, I preferred it when Joe Kinnear was getting people's kind of names wrong and stuff like that. They were good fun. Roy Keane offering to knock people out and that, they were good ones. But I think in terms of the modern Premier League, kind of safe, it's Friday. How's Tino Livramento getting on? Yeah, fine, thanks. It's hardly revolutionary press, is it? If you think about everything else that's going on all over the planet. People enjoy them and that's great. But I guess you've always got the option, like me, of going and doing something else instead. So that's what I tend to do.
What's going to happen, though, lads? What's going to happen is these press conferences, eventually the press are going to turn against them because you can see the way Sky are moving, where they're starting to get, they've got this ridiculous program where they have fans involved in, post-match analysis and stuff like that, and on various programs. And now you've got the likes of that Rory Jennings and people like that turning up at press conferences for Chelsea, and you're thinking you're just a fan, and there'll be a certain level of animosity that'll build up between the so-called professionals, the lads who are doing it for a living, in terms of the press guys, and then they'll get people like me turn up with press conference and be accepted and starting to ask ridiculous questions. Probably still not as ridiculous as Wendy does, but they'll still be ridiculous in the whole realm of things, because soon as you go down that path, it's gonna turn into like ridiculous. It really will. And I think Sky are heading that way already. I think within 3 to 4 years we'll have press conferences where there'll be a section just for like podcasters or fans or some fan zone representatives and stuff like that, and then we will be really, really hating them.
I think we're all too long in the tooth, Blue Rhythm Boy. We've been there, done it, got the T-shirt on that, and we'll just leave it to the young'uns to go and do that. We've very much been in the background now and commenting on NUFC matters and being the critical friend as we've always been. I'm not out of turn speaking for you guys there. I don't think
I'd get bored. My intrusive thoughts would take over, and I'd start asking questions like, "Would you rather have ham for hands or fish fingers for toes?" Because there's about as much journalistic and use in that as some of the bloody other questions I get asked.
Yeah.
Would you rather have a finger-shaped dick or dick-shaped fingers? It's kind.
You'd be getting escorted out. That would be what would happen. Okay, we've got half an hour. Exactly. We've got half an hour left. I have been sticking the link in the chat tonight and I've posted it at the top. We are doing one of those Jumblebee auctions, which we haven't done for a while, but we're donating it to Age UK North Tyneside Dementia. Have a look in there. There's 25 signed items on there. We've got Shearer, Ferdinand, we've got Supermac, Gavin Peacock, Mick Quinn, Aussie Odd Dealers, Peter Beardsley, Tino, Bob Moncur, Stevie Watson, John Anderson, Chris Waddle. You name it, they're on there. Keegan as well. So get yourself on, have a look, and click that link tonight. Got 2 or 3 days left to go and bid. They're all starting at 20 quid. Hopefully we'll make a nice little sum for Age UK on there. And we've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now. Me, Steve and Mitch are putting together the Takeover book. It's going to take a little bit of time. We're not going to rush it out. But we have been messing around in the background and it's coming together quite nicely. We'll share something tonight with you though, which we've all approved, and it is the cover. So here we go. Are you ready? A little drum roll. The Three Amigos Guide to Takeovers is what the book is going to be called. It's going to be very interesting, that to say the least. We've been there on the coalface many, many years now, and we've had lots of dealings with lots of different people and lots of different situations. So the thing that's going to take the hard hours is probably the legal side of it, making sure that we're not offending anybody. But it's not that kind of book, really. It's not a book that's going to shock and offend. A lot of you who've tuned in over the last 5 years will have heard a lot of the stories in here. But to let you know that it is coming, we are working on it, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. There's lots of good stories, lots of laughs. You get to know us a little bit better as well. We'll give a little insight into who we are and how we ended up becoming involved in the takeover. Never mind all the fake takeovers that didn't go ahead. But there's fascinating stories, some great stories, and it will be released in some shape or form next year. Certainly will be on Kindle, but we will hopefully be bringing out a hard copy. We'll probably do a pre-sale. We'll get that on sale pretty early, just so that will help us with the printing bill. But I'm sure everybody who has followed this show will probably buy it. If we work on the premise, we'll get about 4,500 people watching. If 1,000 people buy it, we'll get 1,000 people. We'll get 1,000 books printed. That's the way I'm going to work it. But it'll be there forevermore, and it'll be a pleasure. It is a pleasure to work with these lads on a weekly basis. But to be able to do this is a labour of love and get it out there so that there's a little bit of recognition, I guess, for lots of people who played their part in the takeover. There's lots of people who haven't had that kind of tip of the wing, who did their little bits, and you know, whether that was an email, a phone call, or whatever. Now is the time to really come out and tell people exactly what happened. That's where we're at. That is Hasty on the cover. Yeah, we took the dog off, Ben. We took the dog off. There was a dog on there originally, but I got it taken off. It looks stupid. Rob, thank you for the donation to the Malverno Fund, and can I just say thank you to Rob as well. He's donated at this moment in time 5 Newcastle United replica shirts from different eras for the Christmas do. So we've got some great raffle prizes. Thank you, Rob. He's taken that upon himself. There's an extra large, there's an extra large, there's a 2 extra large. There's a jumper in there, which, yeah, exactly, not for me. No, Liam won't be contributing to the book, Blue Rhythm Boy. Neither will Keith. The people who are contributing are the 3 people you see on the cover. Keith, I'm sure, will do his own book at some point. Funnily enough, I was with Liam today. I had a couple of hours with Liam, a bit of a catch-up. We haven't seen each other face-to-face probably for about 6 months, although we have been in touch on the phone. But yeah, Liam won't be contributing to the book, and you know, he has no need, because out of all of the stories we've got, you'd need an encyclopedia to include Liam's stories and Keith's stories as well. So leave it to Keith. I'm sure Keith and Liam could do something themselves. But where our book is about lots of different things. The takeover is a big thing, but it's about the takeovers that didn't go through, that almost went through. I'm also potentially opening another book with one of the Magpie group as well, which will come after this one. But yeah, there's lots going on behind the scenes, but this one's going to be very special because it's a book that we're doing together. I love the numbers, says Mick. He's realised what the numbers are on the back of the sheet. 7, 10, 21, of course, yeah.
I spoke to Steve on the phone through the week. We were bouncing a few things around. And
Yes.
one thing I'm grateful for is finally I'll be able to answer the question, how the hell does a dentist in Dubai get involved in this? Because frankly, I've asked myself that question on God knows how many times, particularly when we were dealing with Midhat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That in itself was...
Yeah, I think what we can say as well is the amount of memory bank that we've had to dig into, and the amount of material that we've got. We could have our own channel. We did when Steve sent the book title over and the cover there. This just about 3 hours ago, and I did see my working title was Takeover Matters. That's the working title I've got on my side of it. But it just goes to show that we've gone through an awful lot, and as we're gathering everything together and pulling everything together to try and make it a cohesive and as interesting as possible, I think it's surprising us as well, isn't it? It's been it's at the moment it's not a labour of love. It's like a cathartic sort of how can you describe it? Therapy that we're going through.
It's just therapy.
Session. We'll move from the therapy session into the nitty gritty soon, but at the moment we're definitely in therapy.
Yeah. Okay, great stuff. We're going to look ahead now to Brighton. Newcastle have got a good old-fashioned 3 o'clock kickoff tomorrow at Brighton and Hove Albion, the Amex Stadium. Not a happy hunting ground. 5 draws and 3 home wins in the 8 Premier League games that have been played there between the two teams. Speaking to the media today, Eddie Howe confirmed that Jacob Ramsey is returning to the squad. No mention of Lewis Miley today. Nobody asked about him either, but he is expected to be part of the squad. There were slight concerns today over Joe Linton and Will Asula, but Eddie, it was a bit of a contradiction in terms when he talked about Will Asula. He's got an ankle problem, but we're monitoring his training and he will be playing. He will be playing a part if needed. Lewis Hall, Tino Livramento, Johan Wissa all out. Wissa and Hall both penciled in for a return before the November international break. Livramento's comeback still anticipated to be in December. A couple of anniversaries could come about this weekend if players play. Fabian Schär's 1 game away from 200 Premier League appearances. Joe Linton has made 199 starts in all competitions, and Dan Burn is on 149 League Cup starts for the club. Brighton, injury status: Solly March, Adam Webster, Brajan Grud and Jack Hinchelwood are all out. Joel Veltman and Karu Matoma both should return to the squad. Diego Gomez is doubtful after suffering a knock while on international duty. And James Milner could make his 644th appearance. He's chasing Gareth Barry's Premier League record, which is 653, of course. NUFC.com, I've got to credit them for this stat that we used this week. And that is that as a measure of his longevity, Milner played his very first Premier League game in the colours of Leeds United in November 2002, 2 days before Tino Livramento was born. Brilliant. Craig Pawson's second appointment this season as referee. His first one was 0-0 draw at Aston Villa. And VAR for this game is Paul Tierney. If you are heading down to the Amex, then you might want to listen to Scunny Mag.
Happy Friday, Toonami. International break done and dusted. Brighton up next away tomorrow afternoon. It's coming up next. Okay, Brighton. The club do recommend some park and rides around the city. There's 3 of them, one at Mill Road, one at the racecourse, and one at Brighton University. Get parked up, pay your parking fee at whichever one, and your transport to the ground from there is free with a matchday ticket. There is no street parking. Be mindful of that. People have had their cars towed. Personally, I use parking app. It cost me about £4 or £5. and you chuck it in at one of those, and you know you're all right then. So once you're there, let's have a look at pubs. You've got the Ruby, which is also a hotel, and that is going to be your closest pub to the ground. That's not the fan zone. Every time I've been, there's been a mix in there. It's mostly home fans, but there have been obvious away fans in with football tops on, happily drinking. You can find that at Canny United Nurse. Further afield, you're going to be in the city. And in all honesty, it's all right. The pubs are generally pretty welcoming, but I've picked out a couple. So your nearest one that is definitely going to be away friendly to the train station is the Evening Star. You can find it at Timing Scarf Pint. There's a couple of Wetherspoons, but the Post and Telegraph is a little bit more popular with football fans, and Legs Surely Skinny will get you to the corner where the entrance is for that one. If you have come into Brighton Railway Station, it's about 4 miles from the ground. Nearest station is the Falmer local one. If you want a bus in, catch the number 25 from Churchill Square at stop G, and that runs every 12 minutes and takes around 20 minutes to get up there. As you're heading up to the ground, there is a fan zone. It's mixed. They allow visiting supporters to get in there. If you're staying over, there's loads of options in Brighton. I've picked out the Leonardo just because it's on the beachfront, and then the A&O hostel just around the corner from there. We can get a bed roughly from about £15 for the night. You can find the Leonardo at Hip's Famed Gender, and you can find the hostel at Facing Actual Navy, which both seem quite topical for the area. Anyway, once you are ready to head in, your turnstiles are going to be on the southeast corner of the ground. I say corner, it's a big oval. Your what 3 words for the away turnstiles area will be drivers trying solutions. It will get to the steps just in front of where you need to get in. The stadium is cashless, and that's pretty much it from me, and I will catch you in the next one. Cheers.
Love that, Paul. Thank you very much. Over to Turnstile.
Hello everyone, the Premier League is back on Saturday and Newcastle is playing away to Brighton. Actually, Newcastle has never won in the Premier League away to Brighton. 8 games, 5 draws and 3 defeats, which makes actually Brighton the toughest opposition that they have faced in the Premier League, because against no other team has Brighton such a record. Actually, Newcastle has played Brighton 16 times in the Premier League and they have won only 2 games, a percentage win of 13. Again, the lowest against any opposition in the Premier League. Nick Woltemade has scored 3 goals in his first 4 Premier League games for Newcastle. The highest number of goals in 5 games, believe it or not, in the Premier League is Loic Remy with 5, while you have Callum Wilson, Les Ferdinand and a certain Michael Owen with 4. Big Nick can catch them up tomorrow if he scores at least 1 goal. Now, Brighton are also very strong at home recently, and they have only 1 defeat in their last 11 games. At the same time, Newcastle has 3 consecutive 0-0 draws currently. The only team in the history of the professional English football to do 4 consecutive 0-0 draws is Notts County in the 3rd division back in 1935-1936. So also Newcastle can do some history tomorrow. They also lost 1-0 to Arsenal at the end of last season, which makes it 4 consecutive games without a goal away from home. The last time Newcastle went 5 without a goal away from home was under John Carver back in the spring of 2015. So bad tradition, but that's what the stats are for, to be changed and broken. Let's see what happens on Saturday. How are you, lads?
Great stats there. I don't know whether he was into swimming baths. Oh, hold on. There's the last part of the video. Thanks, Andre. Anyway, time for Tune Tipster. Live from the toilet, Joseph.
Is this when it's come to now? Just videos of toilets. It's like it used to be. The show used to be class. You know, there's 2 million people watching it, Steve.
Hurry up, Joe. The crowd aren't happy.
Right, come on then, let's get on with it. Right, okay, Brighton are 6-4 to win the football match. The draw is 12-5, and Newcastle are 13-8. And for those people who kind of don't, not really au fait with kind of betting and such like, it does mean that even though those prices are quite close, Brighton are favourites to win the football match. Danny Welbeck is just over 2-1 to score. You can get quite a big 11-4 for our old mate Yankuba Minte. Mitoma, he's back. He's a player that I really like. He's 3-1, and the 97-year-old James Milner is 7-1 to score against us. Big Nick is 7-4 to score any time in the game, and if you use a company called William Hill, we've actually got an epic boost on our game tomorrow. They are offering even money for Nick Waltermader to have one shot on target. Usually you can bet up to £10 on that, so if you fancy doubling your money, potentially easy bet. Anyway, Harvey Barnes, 11-4. Bruno Gomes is 13-2. And I'm still waiting for Big Dan at the back stick. He is 12-1. No goal scorer in the game is 15-2, but somehow I think there will be goals. 1-0 to Brighton is 15-2. 1-1 is 11-2. 2-1 Newcastle is 17-2. And Stewie's just reminded me that the Penman this week is 20-1 for a 3-1 Newcastle win. Wouldn't that be nice? Joe Linton is 2-1 to get a card of any colour. And if you think there'll be a red card in the game, that is 5-1. 9-4 if you think there'll be a penalty. The North East treble kicks off in about an hour's time at the Riverside with Middlesbrough Ipswich. It is just over 16-1 if you think the three North East teams will win this weekend. It's going to be a close one if you're going to bet on the result. As I say, Brighton are favourites. There's a little bit of value to get some decent money on Newcastle.
Okay, good stuff. George, get a prediction from you and what your feelings are about this game. I went 2-1 last night. I think Newcastle will win tomorrow, so I'm going to go for a 2-1.
Well, on Monday night at the fans forum, I give everybody their usual laugh by saying that they would win 2-0. And I've seen nothing to make us change my mind about that. I just have a feeling that it's time the stats were broken. I think we're in the mood to do it. We're on the up, and I think we'll keep going upwards with a 2-0 win.
Okay, Mitch, over to you. We need the dice as well as your own prediction.
Dice, yeah. But before I do, if you don't mind, a little bit of housekeeping before I forget. Firstly, thank you for all the lovely birthday wishes from everyone. Thank you for the kind wishes on the back of last weekend's trip to Doha, which has just taken a very interesting turn through the week this week, which I also discussed with Steve. Thirdly, thank you for the kind wishes to me dad this week from everybody regarding my mum, because it was their wedding anniversary this week, and I know it's helped me dad this week immensely to know people have been there for him. And finally, it's a year to a day since Stu and my good friend Dave Cartman shuffled off his mortal coil. So here's to you, Dave, you big dickhead. We miss you. And we wish you'd been there at Wembley with me, mate. So that's that done. Brighton are a very erratic team this season. They're not as organised at the back as they usually are. They've conceded as many as they've scored. So it's going to depend which one turns up. Really, they're not consistent. Yes, we have a terrible record since promotion in the Premier League at Brighton. That has to end sometime. These records very rarely go on for a long period of time, with the exception of our terrible run in London at one stage. But these things do have to come to a natural end. I'm actually not so worried about Minte as the other side with Trippier. I think is it Mitoma? I've got more of an issue with that side, to be honest with you. I'll be interested to see what kind of formation he goes with. Personally, if we can do what we did at Bournemouth and come away with a draw, I'd actually be quite comfortable with that. I don't think that would be a bad result, given what history at Brighton. However, the dice says, we're going to get hooked 3-0.
Oh, given like the dice.
But no, I personally think 1-1.
1-1. Okay. Steve?
I was going to go for 1-1 as well. and listening to Joe earlier, Joe, Big Dan at the back stick. Have you not been studying our set piece tactics recently?
It's more wishful thinking, Steve.
Back stick anymore. He stands in front of the goalkeeper and blocks everybody.
I'm sick of telling you though, Eddie Howe is not a good manager, because a good manager would have him at the back stick.
Oh, it's comical, isn't it? It's great. James Milner, DME. Did you know one of the stats about James Milner is that it's 24 consecutive seasons playing in the Premiership. Unbelievable longevity, and you've got to go. He's now like 49 or something, but that's another matter. But no, I think tomorrow's going to be one of those games. I was going to go for 1-1 draw, as I said. Brighton are one of those teams that will come back at you. You could get an early goal and you could try and sit back and hold tight, but the last 8 minutes is just gung ho, and we've seen them do it before. We're talking about the book launch, Stephen. Talking about writing the book. It's our first foray into the takeover. If you remember, it was not long after we sat with Rafa and we played Brighton. And George and I went down with you and we sat with Rafa, and who happened to be there sitting in the room when we got there with Chris Hooton. So the game was Brighton.
And Pardew was on the television.
He was,
yeah,
yes. He was. And they both had comments to make, if I remember rightly, but we'll not go into that one. That'll not make the book. We don't want to embarrass everybody. But no, I mean, Brighton are you're right. They're not ticking, are they? They're not producing the goods. Something's quite right with them, and whether it's the selling that they've had, the players that they've moved on, and he's not quite getting to the new players to yet, but I'm sure it will come. And I'll be interested. I'm going to text him later on and ask Stu what he thinks, because obviously Stu's beloved Hearts are owned by the Brighton owner as well. So Stu will still be going for a 3-1, though, we know that. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, Steve.
1-1, okay. Joe?
Yeah, these records are there to be broken, aren't they? But my head instantly, when I thought about the game, was it was going to be 1-1. But I don't know what I'm basing that on, because at some point we're going to win away. We're going to, we're going to beat somebody, and as I say, we've got to shake these monkeys off our back. So the head might say 1-1, but actually I'm going to go with my heart this week. We're playing really, really well. Walter Maida looks unplayable when he's got the ball at his feet. We've got a Champions League game to look forward to. Anthony Gordon's firing on all cylinders, another goal for England. So what is there not to be positive about? So do you know what? It'll be Brighton 0, Newcastle 2.
So just got time for one. Just time for one. The day I met, where we asked you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle, past or present. Thank you to Denise for this one. She finally got to meet Supermac outside the ground. Thank you, Denise. Safe trip to Brighton with Daz tomorrow. Bring back 3 points. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to the moderators. Thanks to Joe. Thanks to Steve, to Mitch, to George. And I will be back tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock with Three's a Crowd, the North East Footy podcast, and then back 5 o'clock till 6 o'clock with Mitch and Stu on Sunday night with the professionals. Enjoy the game. Take care, guys.
All the best.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you all.